You're listening to the Piano Parent Podcast with Shelly Davis, episode 370. Hey there, and welcome to the Piano Parent Podcast. I'm Shelly Davis, a longtime piano teacher and parent with my husband of 4 mostly musical kids. As parents, we spend so much time trying to encourage and motivate our kids. We wonder if we're doing the best things for them. We second guess our decisions, and we worry if we're going to scar them for life. While you focus on encouraging your kids, I'm here to reassure and inspire you. I'll be here every week with practice tips, inspirational teacher interviews, and musical topics to help you impress your kids with your musical knowledge. Parenting is not for the faint of heart, but it's much easier with support, and you have come to the right place. Good morning, piano parents. Thank you for tuning in to the show today. This is episode 370, and that means it's an episode that ends in a 0. Every time I have a 10th episode, I like to bring you a list of 10 somethings. You can find all of those 10th episodes categorized separately on the website at pianoparentpodcast.com if you want to go back and listen to any of the previous lists of 10s. Today, I am bringing you a bit of a show and tell. I have a whole display of things on the table next to me here because today we're going to be talking about 10 finger activities for young pianists, fine motor skills, and activities that preschoolers and beginning pianists can do away from the piano that will have massive help to them when they are trying to play the piano. Being able to play the individual keys with your individual fingers or combinations of fingers is a very technical skill that has to be developed over time. Children are just starting to get used to using their fingers independently, so any extra practice that you can give them away from the piano will have exponential benefits when they come back to the piano. And in this day and age, when so much of our activity revolves around a screen and a flat two-dimensional activity, then I hope that you will get some ideas, or maybe you're already doing some of these great activities. You'll be inspired to do some others with your young pianist. Last week's episode was focused more toward parents with older kids and how important it is for us to monitor our screen time and to be available to talk to our teenagers even when they might think that they don't want to spend time with us, they don't want to talk to us. I think they really do, and it's so important that we cultivate a relationship with our older children. So today, we're swinging the pendulum to the opposite side of things, and we're going to be focusing on how we can get our young children started and some activities to get them going with some fine motor skills. When I first started thinking about this list of 10 finger activities for young players, I had a few ideas in mind, but to get a little more, I decided to go to the experts. I went to a website called NAPA Center. That stands for Neurological and Physical Habilitation. And there are 2 articles on their website that I gleaned some information from. One is 35 fine motor activities, Therapist's Ultimate List, written by Lisa Murphy, and I got a few ideas from her. The other article has fine motor skills listed by examples according to age, and that was written by Audrey Dwinell. I'm sorry if I said her name wrong. I'll link both of these articles on the show notes for this episode if you want to get a little more information about that. Just briefly, to define our terms and make sure we're both thinking the same thing, Audrey, in her article, defined fine motor skills as something that is used throughout everyday life in ways that we adults typically don't even realize. Fine motor skills are needed for things like feeding, dressing, undressing, grooming, bathing, toothbrushing, writing, even texting. Fine motor skills are important for completing schoolwork, such as drawing, coloring, writing their name, and they're also important for independence with self-care. When a child starts walking, holding their bottle or holding a rattle, they're using their gross motor skills. They're walking, they're moving their body and those bigger movements with our larger parts of our limbs. But as we get more developed and our abilities get more complex, we can fine-tune the fine motor skills, working specifically with our fingers and hands, fingers independently, or maybe hand-to-hand coordination. So let's just jump in and talk about some of those things. As I mentioned, I do have a show and tell today. And so if you're listening on your podcast player, I'll also have in the show notes the YouTube link if you want to catch what I'm showing on the YouTube video. The first thing on the list is the simple, fun activity of peeling stickers and placing them on a page. I use stickers a lot in my piano lessons. We'll put a sticker on a piece of music whenever a student has finished it. We can say that we've accomplished it. So rather than a grade or just a check mark, I've got all kinds of stickers that I let students choose from. And shout out to my friend Liz Boyd with SusanParody.com. Susan Parody was her mother. She was a Texas music teacher, and she created all kinds of resources for teachers. After she passed away, she had spoken to Liz about taking over the business. Liz just happens to be a graphic artist, so she has taken Susan's idea and has really expanded it more. This is a collection from her November Betty Boop sticker club. And so I'll link up how you can join that sticker club. I'll put that in the show notes for you. But the idea of peeling stickers, they have to use fine motor skills to figure out where the edge of the sticker is, peel it off the page, and then decide exactly where they want to place it. That's a great easy away from the piano activity. If you don't belong to the Betty Boop Sticker Club, then of course stickers are available at the dollar store and the grocery store. I remember whenever I was little, my mom would get some sort of magazine club, and there would come in the mail all these little stamps of maybe what magazines you might want to subscribe to. And you were supposed to lick the back of the stamp, because this was before self-adhesive was a thing. You would lick the back of the stamp and put it on your order form. That would be how you could place your order for magazines. My mom would just give me the stamps, and I had the most fun tearing along the perforated edges, licking them and sticking them to paper. How smart was my mom? Number 2 on the list is stringing Cheerios. I would say stringing beads. And I've got a string of beads here. This is actually a project that we're working on in my studio this year. All of my students are collecting beads based on their quality of practice. This student has earned some purple star beads because of some songs that he has really worked hard to perfect. He got over 100 minutes of practice, so he's got a football bead. He finished one of his books, so he has a book bead, lots of different kinds of beads. And I chose this year to get not just a piece of yarn and not just a string. This is more of a plastic cording, and so it's a little more stiff, sturdy, for my younger students to be able to string the bead onto there. And the fun joke in the studio is getting the students to learn how to tie a slip knot so that we secure the beads that are already on there, but then we can easily untie the slip knot so that they can add more beads next week. So learning to tie a slip knot is something we're trying to master in piano lessons this year. But the act of taking a bead in one hand, taking a string, or maybe for a very young child, you would do something like a pipe cleaner, something that's a little more sturdy. The larger the bead, the larger the hole, so that they can easily slide the pipe cleaner or even a dry spaghetti noodle. That is some hand coordination, getting the two pieces to fit together. Eye-hand coordination, watching how they're connecting the two pieces. So lots of good fine motor skills being learned when you put beads on a string. The next thing on the list that I found on the Napa website was simply putting coins into a piggy bank. The act of picking up a coin off of a flat surface, that's going to take some motor skills, and then holding the coin holding the coin so that there is a rim that can go inside the slot of the piggy bank. They're not holding it so tight that the coin doesn't have a place to go. That's a pretty cool skill. A couple of other things talking about coins. I learned this when I went to the Music Teachers National Association conference in Minneapolis this past spring. So many of my students anymore are not comfortable with the fact of putting their two thumbs on middle C. When I first started learning to play the piano, we shared middle C. That wasn't something that was even a hesitation. It's just what we did. We shared middle C. And you would think if kids are used to texting and doing that sort of activity these days, they wouldn't have a problem sharing middle C. But I get so much pushback from students. Oh no, I don't want my hands to be so close together. I'm sorry that I don't remember the demonstrator, but he just had a coin on the edge, the cabinet of the piano, not on the keys. That's a piggy bank that you would have trouble making a withdrawal from. He had a coin on the cabinet of the piano, and he asked the student, pick up the coin with one hand and then place it back. And then pick up the coin with your other hand, place it back. Pick it up, put it back. Pick it up, put it back. I've done this with an eraser on the piano keys. Put it on middle C, pick it up with your right hand, put it back. Pick it up with your left hand, put it back. Pick it up, and switching hands back and forth. You see how your hands are able to take turns? That's what I mean when I say share middle C. You're not actually going to press that piano key down with both of your thumbs. They're just both ready to play when the time comes for them to do that. Sorting coins would be a great thing, just in the different types of coins, but then picking them up off of a table and putting them in a piggy bank is a great fine motor skill. One of my fond memories growing up would be sitting at the dining table with my dad and my little brother and a whole pile of coins that my dad dumped out of a gallon jar or maybe a coffee can. We would sort the coins and stack them in stacks of 5 or 10. We would look for any kind of special coins, maybe if there was a Canadian coin mixed in with our American coins, or some older coin like a wheat penny or a buffalo nickel, and all these different types of coins. And we would sort out the really unique ones and then count the rest of them and roll them up. The whole time we're rolling these coins and counting these coins, we're just thinking we're spending time with our dad. He told us we're doing it so that we can save this money for vacation. He would pull out an atlas and show us where he was planning to take us on vacation that summer. But now I realize my dad was teaching us patience for sorting the coins. He was teaching us to get along with each other, my brother and I. And then, of course, the fine motor skills of sorting all the coins and counting and then rolling them up in the coin wrappers. Lots of work, tedious work that maybe he didn't want to do by himself, but now it's a treasured childhood memory. So thanks, Dad. You did a pretty good job, too. Moving on to number 4 on my list, the site that I referenced earlier suggested clothespins, and if you can find wooden clothespins, more power to you. Those seem to be a little bit, sometimes they can be pretty stiff with the action, and if you get your finger caught in it, that can pinch. So we don't want that, but even a chip clip would work the same kind of idea. You see how I've got my thumb on the bottom and some fingers on the top, and pulling that together. That's making my thumb and my fingers work against each other. That's a pretty good skill. It's kind of hard to press to open the clip if I use the flat part of my finger. I get more strength if I use the tip of my finger. And that is exactly the same motion that I want when I press a piano key. I want the first knuckle of my finger to be very strong. I don't want it to collapse. And yuck, nobody wants to press I can't even do it. Nobody wants to press clothespin or anything else with your collapsed first knuckle. On the list of 35 activities, the therapist suggested that you, as a parent, can clip some things to your child's clothes and let them work on getting them off. Maybe it's easier for them to pinch it to come open rather than to have a piece of paper for them to try to put it onto. So, whichever way you want to do that motion. Oh, and also make sure they do it with the other hand too. You'll notice that one hand has a little more strength. The other hand they may have to work at a little bit. The next item on my list has to do with molding shapes and creating things with Play-Doh. And I don't have Play-Doh to show you, but you know what that is like. You probably can imagine the smell right now, opening a fresh can of Play-Doh. That brings back childhood memories. The manipulation and moving and shaping the Play-Doh, those are some great fine motor skills for your child to be working on. I'll tell you a story about my older daughter, Carrie. When she was in first or second grade, her teacher gave everyone, it wasn't Play-Doh, it was a stiffer kind of clay that would set once it was dry. And she had the students shape every letter of the alphabet with this clay. And it was a tool to help students who might have some dyslexia issues. The shape and the memory that they would develop shaping that letter, both capital and lowercase, would help them have a stronger association when they saw that letter in their reading. And I didn't do that training, so that's just my perspective as a parent. But sort of a fun bonus for Carrie, once she got all of her letters all spelled out, they had a pizza box that they would keep all of their letters in. And once she got them all, she could say her alphabet forward, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, all the way to Z. But she memorized her alphabet going backwards. One of the things she would put when she was applying for jobs on her resume, a fun fact for her, is that she could say her alphabet faster going backwards than most people can say theirs going forward. Can you say the alphabet backwards? ZYXWVUT. I'm going to stop right there. I can, but I get stuck in the middle. I was mentioning that when you do the clothespins, you have to have a very strong first knuckle. You've probably seen, and your child probably has, a dozen of those fidget toys. To press one of those bubbles, your finger can't be flat. I guess you could, if you tried really hard, have a flat finger to press that in. But piano teachers love these things because you have to have a strong first knuckle. You have to press with the tip of your finger to press that bubble and pop the little bubble. Believe it or not, this is called Last Mouse Lost. I paid $10 for this game, and then within a couple of years, Poppets became all the rage, and now you can get them 3 for $1 or something like that. But this came with game instructions of how to actually play a game, not just pop the things just to hear the sound and feel the sensation. There's actually rules to play this game. More strategy. Been along the lines of games and puzzles. I don't have any wooden puzzles, but I'm sure if you've had small children, you remember the small wooden puzzles that have a specific shape, and maybe it's an airplane or a car and a train with a wooden peg, so they hold the peg and try to get the puzzle piece shaped exactly the way it needs to be. Puzzles are another great fine motor activity that children can do away from the piano, but it's going to be a big help to them when they come back to the piano. I use the idea of puzzles a lot when I'm trying to help children work on a piece of music. First of all, the puzzles that I was just talking about, those wooden cutout puzzles, there's maybe 3-4 pieces to it, and that's the most a child can do. At first, it's kind of challenging for them to make the shape fit the cutout slot the way it's supposed to, but as they develop and as they get more experience, then they can have actual jigsaw puzzles, but maybe they only have 10 or 12 pieces, and they're big pieces that they can fit together. And then as they progress more, they can work to a 100-piece puzzle, that the pieces are smaller, but there's more of them. Have you ever spent days trying to put together a 1,000-piece puzzle or a 500-piece puzzle? The worst puzzle I ever did was a picture of popcorn spread on a table, and it didn't have any straight edges. I thought we were never going to get that puzzle put together. I would never dream to ask a toddler to try to put a complicated 1,000-piece puzzle together. By the same token, you wouldn't ask a child to read a complex piece of music or even read a complex book. You're not going to give a child a copy of Tolstoy's War and Peace. You're not going to give a child a copy of Tolkien's The Hobbit or The Lord of the Rings. You're going to give them something very, very simple. Cat in the Hat, something very, very basic, and applaud them when they can read on that level, and then gradually build them up to the more complex books. The same is true with reading music. You'll probably notice with your child's beginning piano book, there are not very many notes on the page. The notes are very large on the page. The staff, if they're reading on a staff, is very large. And as they keep progressing, then there's more notes on the page. The notes are smaller, and it's the same progression. Jigsaw puzzles, reading literature, reading music. Coming back to the idea of using something for the fingers and the thumb to work with each other, you could have children sort some things, sort beads or sort even cotton balls with tongs. They would have to use their thumb and their fingers to pinch the thing together to pick it up. That's different than just picking it up with their fingers. If you want more eye-hand coordination, put a tool in their hand and have them operate the tool. When I was little, I would try to use a spoon. Instead of using the spoon to scoop up the peas, I would pick up the peas from my plate and then put them on the spoon. I was maybe a little delayed with some of those motor skills. Legos is another great activity to do with fine motor skills. It's fun to watch children put together patterns. I remember being fascinated when Tracy was little. She was very particular about putting her Legos in a certain color pattern. She would always have the colors sorted. She would have sizes sorted. So it was very interesting to watch her. And I love that Legos have come out with different sizes. So we've got these larger ones that younger children can enjoy, and then the smaller ones when the kids get a little more advanced. I heard a really interesting podcast with a fellow piano teacher, Christine Whitlock, with her Beyond Measured podcast. She talked about how her children have gotten so accustomed to buying a Lego kit that they put together a Hogwarts castle from Harry Potter or one of the Star Wars fighter jets. They follow instructions to build the thing they bought the Lego kit for. When I was younger, we just got a box of Legos, and it might have a paper for how you could build a car or put together some Legos to make a house, but it really wasn't a specifically designed kit. It was just a hodgepodge of Legos, and you could build whatever you wanted. Christine was talking about how valuable it is for her kids to have the freedom to just take those blocks and build whatever they want. They don't have to build whatever the kit says. She applied that to music as well. She talked about the fact that we can learn to read music and we can learn to reproduce what other composers have written. But if we're taking piano lessons, wouldn't it be fun just to play the piano? Not always have to be reproducing what someone else has written. Wouldn't it be fun just to kind of noodle around and make our own sounds at the piano? I agree. A little sidebar, you notice on these Legos that I'm holding, I've got, well, let me take this bottom one away. I've got at the top of this stack, I've got four of the single-sided, one dot, whatever, Legos. Underneath that, I've got some Legos that cover two of the little circle things. And then at the bottom of my stack, then I've got a large Lego that has four of the connector, the circle connectors. And that might be a good visual for a student who's needing to understand the association between quarter notes and half notes and whole notes. If you can see a visual representation, this is taking up 4 of those little circle things. So I'm going to hold that longer, but then the half notes are only taking up 2 of them, and then each quarter note's going to have to go a little bit quicker. Maybe that would be a handy tool. All right, so we've talked about 8 things on my list. We just have 2 more to go. And I try to keep these types of activities in my studio. I have lots of siblings that come to lessons. And while one sibling is having their lesson, the other one can be working quietly. You can see behind me, I've got a comfortable chair and some crayons, and coloring books, and different building blocks. Oh, this one is called Pattern Play. Color by Design. It has all of these wooden geometric shapes. They get the card and try to match up the color pattern with whatever they see on the card. So they're working on problem solving and spatial recognition, spatial awareness. Another game, wooden blocks that I have, are 16 color cubes. And these are the blocks that there's 16 in the kit. They each have a different color on the sides, like maybe solid blue, solid yellow. Some of the sides will have half, they're split on the diagonal. This one has half red and half white. There are different geometric shapes that they can create based on how they place the boxes on the grid. And I actually have taken this idea to a whole new level and created some different puzzles. Let me see if I can show you one. I'll show you this one since we're talking about the little kids. This one is a puzzle that students can solve the music alphabet, and on the grid I've got in each square there's a 4x4 grid of squares, and each square has a letter of the music alphabet. At the top of the page there is a legend. Yeah, legend is a good word. So that, for example, this first square has a B, and they need to place their block on that square in the grid with a half yellow, half blue side of the square showing up. And once they get all of the letters done, then they will make a geometric shape. I'll have this music alphabet puzzle available for you on at the show notes if you'd be interested in downloading that. I'm working on a whole collection of about 20 or 25 of these puzzles, and if you have the design blocks that already have the different color codings on them, then this is just another way that you can help your children, help your piano students use those blocks and reinforce musical concepts along the way. You could use your crayons or markers and color the square according to the legend. The last thing on my list of some finger activities, fine motor skills that you can do with your young players are to play games. Candyland is a fun game. Connect 4 is a fun game. Any kind of game where they're using pieces or holding cards. Candyland is a good one because you have to make sure that you're moving your little gingerbread person from one color to the next color. Connect 4, we've got those discs, the little coin shapes that they put in the slot. Maybe they don't understand the strategery behind Connect 4, but they can still have fun placing the coins in the slots and making their own patterns with those. And then later on, you can teach them some strategy on how to get 4 dots in a row. I love also just the memory game of concentration. And this is a card game that I am working on getting out to you. Right now, to buy this deck is like $40, and that is not a good price point. So I'm working on how I can get that at a better price point. It's just a card game, but you can use the cards. Let me see if I can find the match to play the matching game. And so if you've got all the cards face down on a table, turn over one card, turn over another card, and yay, I've got a match. It's a musical concept that I'm learning, and I had to use my fingers to turn over the cards and see if they were a match. so many activities. I'm sure you can think of lots of other things that you can do with your child. I hope that you will be encouraged to do some of these tangible physical activities away from the television, away from the tablet, and actually doing some physical things, how much cognitive benefit that's going to be for them. So there we have it. 10 finger activities for young piano players, things that they can do away from the piano to help them when they are at the piano and even in their academics. I appreciate you so much for listening. Be sure to check out the show notes at pianoparentpodcast.com/370, and I'll have links to the NAPA articles. I'll have links to susanparody.com. I'll even have that download if you want to get the puzzle to be able to do your own block grid. If you're interested in spending $40 on a deck of cards, I'll let you know how you can get those. If you have ideas of how we can make these more budget conscious, please let me know. You can send me a message at Shelly at Piano Parent Podcast, or find me on Instagram at Piano Parent Podcast. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll see you next time. And that's the end of today's episode. Thank you so much for hanging around all the way to the end. If you haven't done so already, this would be a great time for you to hit the subscribe button. If you're listening through Spotify or Apple Podcasts or whatever your favorite podcast player is, hit subscribe so you will be the first to receive next week's episode. I would love to connect with you. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Piano Parent Podcast, and you could just email me, Shelly at pianoparentpodcast.com.